GLC is now offering a free audio stream of our 24/7 broadcast that we're calling GLC Radio, an online radio station that broadcasts our round-the-clock audio stream on a variety of platforms. GLC Radio gives you the ability to listen to GLC virtually anywhere, through your home or office computer, or on the go with a mobile device. You can access GLC Radio through our website or by searching for God's Learning Channel through iTunes Internet Radio, TuneInRadio.com, or on Shoutcast.com. Explore various GLC Radio-enabled mobile apps by visiting our website at glc.us.com/listen/GLC Radio. GLC Radio, your free connection to GLC anywhere, anytime.
Well, the Cooper gang of GLC is ready to invite you to watch Update. So, ladies, where do we go?
Well, we have news. Lots of news.
Do we?
And you have a letter.
I got a great letter. Well, this letter comes from Lubbock, and we continue to pray for GLC and all of your servants of our precious Lord Yeshua. GLC is such a voice in the wilderness to bring truth to the world. We all must continue in his strength, but rest in his presence. Praise to our mighty Lord Yeshua. Don and Teresa from Lubbock. That's a good letter. That's a good word for me. Thank you.
Amen.
You know, we hear that a lot, that GLC is a voice crying in the wilderness, you know? At least it's not a barren wilderness so much anymore. We've had so much rain, people come here and they don't even recognize it.
That's the truth.
Which is kind of fun. It's like, Lord, can we have a little bit of green, just a little?
You know, it's so green up in New Mexico. I called my brother, who's a rancher up west of Roswell. He says in all of his life, he's never seen it so beautifully green up there.
Wow. I'd like to see it.
They've had rain 3 times in the last week.
Wow.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
That
Thank
never
you,
happens
Yeshua.
up there.
No. Okay.
Well, you know, it used to be 100 years ago that, like over in Roswell, New Mexico, the Pecos Valley, the grass, the wild grass was up to the horses' bellies.
Yes.
That's why they settled there.
That's right.
And so maybe everything is just changing back for a while, and, you know,
Who knows?
it's not like we have been in the United States thousands of years.
That's right.
So how do we know? We actually only settled the West 150 years ago. So what do we know?
We're just kids.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
What kind of news have we got today, Mom?
Well, I picked out a good article, an encouraging article for the first one. It's from Arut Sheva and the AFP. Individual efforts of mainly Protestant groups in Poland have opened the doors for Christians fleeing the war and bloodshed in Syria. Magdalena Hudzika, a mother of 4, is rolling out her welcome mat. Her family is among dozens in Poland opening their homes to Syrian Christians fleeing war and Islamic State persecution, part of a groundbreaking drive by the Catholic nation's tiny Protestant community to save lives. The war in Syria is all over our screens, but until now we couldn't really help, said the 42-year-old who lives with her physician husband in Izbalin, a town just north of Warsaw. We're expecting a family with children. We have lots of toys, she told AFP. It's like receiving Christ in your home, added the deeply religious graphic artist, explaining her motives.
But not all her neighbors support her decision to host refugees from the Middle East, she said. Surveys show a 70% majority are reticent in the country of 38 million people. The Polish government only unlocked the door to 158 Syrian Christian asylum seekers after the Astera Foundation, a Warsaw-based charity run by the Protestant minority, secured funds for their flights from the Middle East and guaranteed a year's worth of living expenses.
When the Polish government told me there was no budget for Syrian refugees in 2015, I realized I had to raise all the money to bring them over, Foundation Chief Miriam Shaded told AFP. Despite a recent demand by Pope Francis for an immediate end to what he termed a genocide of Christians in the Middle East, Poland's dominant Roman Catholic Church has not contributed, preferring instead to work with Christians on the ground in Syria and Iraq.
The daughter of a Syrian-born Presbyterian pastor in Warsaw, Shaded said offers to host Syrian Christians have come mostly from members of various Protestant churches, though some Catholics have also volunteered. The UK-based Barnabas Fund, providing relief to persecuted Christians worldwide, is covering the lion's share of funding, amounting to several £100,000, spokesman Andrew Carey told the AFP. We're now in confidential talks with other European countries as part of our Safe Havens project, aimed at resettling Christians under threat in the Middle East. Britain's Lord George Weidenfeld, a 95-year-old Holocaust survivor rescued by British Protestants from the Nazis, has also pledged support via the Barnabas Funds, Carey said.
In all, Estera has requested Poland grant entry to around 1,500 Syrian Christians. Bill Frelich, Director for Refugee Rights at Human Rights Watch, told AFP he was not aware of similar private sponsorship initiatives for Syrian refugees in the EU. This is a laudable example of grassroots solidarity and empathy by the fortunate to reach out to rescue less fortunate people in harm's way. A widowed teacher from Damascus, Ishra al-Badawi, says she survived regime aerial bombardments and the explosion of a booby-trapped car that killed 17 other pedestrians. Now it's like we've landed on another planet, she told AFP after she and her son spent their first days with the Warsaw family. We feel very welcome, the food's delicious, and above all, we're safe. Her host, Miriam's Polish-born mother, Stefania, said she did not think twice about offering her home as a refuge. Love your neighbor as you love yourself are words I do my best to live by, she told AFP, quoting a biblical passage.
A 70-member Baptist church in the northern Polish city of Olsztyn has also welcomed a Syrian family of 4. None of us speak English well, so we're using Google Translate to communicate, project coordinator Piotr Zatswik told the AFP, adding that his small church raised around 35,000 zloty, which is 10,000 euros?
No, dollars.
$10,000, 9,000 euros, to cover a year's worth of food and a rented apartment.
Facing an October general election, Polish government and opposition politicians have protested against proposals for an EU-wide system of national quotas for distributing migrants from the Middle East and Africa among the bloc's 28 member states. They insist that Poland welcome refugees on a voluntary basis with a preference for Christians.
European Union nations are at odds over how to care for tens of thousands of asylum seekers who've come ashore in Italy and Greece after surviving dangerous Mediterranean crossings. Last year, Warsaw granted refugee status to around 200 Syrians, according to Iwa Pichoti, spokeswoman for Poland's Office for Foreigners. She told AFP that initially the state will provide free medical care to the Estera-sponsored asylum seekers who entered Poland on 3-month travel visas. Free language training and help finding jobs will be made available after they gain refugee status.
The conflict in Syria, which erupted in 2011, has left at least 220,000 people dead and 4 million refugees, according to the latest UN figures. Syria's 1.2 million Christians made up some 5% of its population before the war. Many have since fled.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow, wow, wow.
Right.
Well, it's good that somebody somewhere is doing something to help
You know?
the
Amen.
Christians over there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the boy at the seashore picking up starfish and throwing one back in.
What good is that going to do?
Men walked by and said, "That's not going to do any good." He said, "Well, it's good for that one." So,
That one's sure happy about it.
yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay, it looks like the next article comes from Israel Hayam. Okay, one of the clauses in the nuclear deal reached between world powers and Iran last week guarantees that the world powers will assist Iran in thwarting attempts to undermine its nuclear program, Israel Hayom learned on Sunday.
Article 10 of the deal, included in a section titled Reactors, Fuels, Facilities, and Processes, stipulates that world powers and Iran will foster cooperation through training and workshops to strengthen Iran's ability to protect against and respond to nuclear security threats, including sabotage, as well as to enable effective and sustainable nuclear security and physical protection systems.
Wow. Israeli officials have warned time and again against the loopholes in the deal, and National Security Council officials scrutinizing the agreement said the clause, which appears on page 142 of the agreement, is very disturbing, as it suggests there is an international commitment to block any attempt to compromise Iran's nuclear facilities over the next decade.
Recent years have seen various mishaps befall the Iranian nuclear program, from powerful computer viruses to the death of nuclear scientists, which world media outlets have often attributed to foreign intelligence agencies, including Mossad. The article suggests the P5+1, the US, UK, Russia, China, France, and Germany, will actively try to prevent such incidents, as well as any potential military operation against Iran, making such options far more complicated and dangerous.
Sources privy to the negotiation said Article 10 did not appear in the interim deal inked between world powers and Iran in April, but was added to the final agreement at the last minute, allegedly over Iran's desire to protect its nuclear program, which it claims serves solely civilian purposes.
The problematic stipulation vexed the Prime Minister's office, with one official saying it was inconceivable. The U.S. has to protect Iran as it pursues nuclear weapons because its program is allegedly civilian, the official wondered. National Infrastructure, Energy and Water Resources Ministry Yuval Steinitz said Sunday that Article 10 was disconcerting as it is open to interpretation.
Steinitz noted that Israel was focused on illustrating the fundamental deficiencies in the deal, such as in the provisions detailing oversight over Iran's nuclear facilities, which require that the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors give Iran 24 days' notice. It's a joke. The fact that 12 years from now Iran could be days away from a nuclear weapon, all in exchange for relative calm, means the world powers have legitimized Iran's desire to become a nuclear threshold state.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened the Diplomatic Security Cabinet on Sunday to discuss Israel's response to the deal. He emphasized that Congress could still prevent the deal from being implemented. If anyone thought the far-reaching concessions offered to Iran would make it change its policies, they were proved wrong by Iranian leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's defiant and aggressive speech over the weekend, Netanyahu said. The Iranians have stated in no uncertain terms that they will continue to fight the U.S. and its allies, primarily Israel.
So I guess it's time for congressmen to hear from everyone.
It is time for Congress to hear from everyone.
because there was a big deal about them having the final say-so over any deal with Iran. And they know it's in there.
They sure do.
So are we going to hold them accountable?
How does somebody get a hold of their congressman?
You can go online.
Can you?
Very
can.
easy going online and
Yes.
finding their
Okay,
Right,
Yep.
let's do it.
for sure.
Yeah.
Call them, email them,
Yep.
write to them, hammer them.
All of the above. This next article is coming from Haaretz and the Associated Press. Iran and Russia have signed a military cooperation pact, the official TASS Russian news agency reported on Tuesday. The agreement to intensify military and technological cooperation was made during a Tehran meeting between Iranian Defense Minister Hossein Degah and visiting Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, Russian media reported. Shoigu, who arrived in Tehran on Sunday, was quoted by SputnikNews.com as saying, "We're in favor of long-term and multi-level cooperation with Iran and welcome the Iranians' leadership attempts to expanding its ties with Russia, including military defense. We have common challenges and threats in the region that we can oppose only if we communicate." Shoigu will also reportedly meet General Hassan Firouzabadi, the chief of staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, while in Tehran. Iran's IRNA state news agency described Shoigu's visit as an outstanding event.
Iran and Russia are able to confront the expansionist intervention and greed of the United States through cooperation, synergy, and activating strategic potential capacities, Dagan said. As two neighbors, Iran and Russia have common viewpoints toward political, regional, and global issues. Shoigu said not to mention, and he did not mention, ongoing controversy over a deal to deliver a sophisticated air defense missile system to Iran. In 2007, Russia signed an $800 million contract to sell Tehran the S-300 missile system, but the weaponry was never delivered amid strong objections by the United States and Israel.
Iran has filed a lawsuit with a court in Geneva seeking $4 billion in damages over breach of that contract, but the court hasn't yet made any ruling. Russia has insisted that its decision to freeze the S-300 delivery was based on the United Nations Security Council sanctions against Iran. Iran State TV reported Tuesday that Iran and Russia have agreed to settle their differences over the missile deal without offering further details. Last year, Russia media reports said that Moscow had sought to end the dispute by offering Iran a different, slightly inferior version of the S-300 system, but Tehran had rejected the proposal.
Russia remains a central player in ongoing negotiations concerning Iran's nuclear program between the Islamic Republic and the West. In January, it was reported that Iran tentatively agreed to ship much of its material needed to manufacture nuclear weapons to Russia. In May 2014, it was reported that Russia planned on signing a contract with Iran to build 2 more nuclear reactors at its Bushehr power plant as part of a broader deal for up to 8 reactors in Iran.
Wow.
So what do you do? There's absolutely not a whole lot we can do that's going to have any effect other than to just pray.
You
Pray,
have
pray,
to pray.
Pray that the kingdom come and God's will be done.
Amen.
Just as
And pray
Jesus taught us.
Pray that Christians act like Christians, that they pray, they don't get angry, they don't get vengeful, that they pray for salvation for all these nations and the people in the nations, and keep our own house clean. You know, as far as our spirits are, frequently check your fruit of your spirit. If you're getting angry, go back and check. And I know it's hard not to get angry when you see so much stupid stuff going on,
but
for your thinking.
nevertheless,
That's right.
Well, it's really kind of funny, Christians especially have a hard time until you tell them, when God made that covenant with Israel, every other nation was pagan.
Absolutely.
Well, after he made that covenant with them, every other nation was pagan except them. And you think about that, and this is one of the things that shocked the Apostle Paul so much on the road to Damascus, was that Jesus showed him his plan. And he's like, who would have thought that these pagan Gentiles would have ever been invited to be part of the kingdom? That God loved the world so much that he'd give his only son so that they could be in covenant with him as well. the two-part contract, right?
That's something.
And, you look at the world now, and you look at the behavior of people. God is really not surprised. I mean,
No,
he
he's
kind of
not.
told us that at the end, men would be like they were in the days of Noah. Guess what? God had to destroy the world because it was so bad. Well, it was no different than it is today.
Yeah.
Except we're not quite there yet, I guess.
Not quite that bad, I guess.
But and
No.
the thing is that when you look at that and you realize that people are just so yuck. They're just so yuck. You sit there and you go, God, it's amazing that
Well-
you love any of us.
Isn't it the
Because
truth?
sin is sin to him. It doesn't matter. If I lie about something, that's just as bad as murder to him. It's just as bad as somebody chopping off somebody's head
Yeah.
Well-
because they think it's the right thing to do.
This TV that you're watching is probably television in itself. It probably takes more division away from God than we could ever imagine. I was reading an article a while ago. They don't know what to do with all the programming that's going on television. Well, if
Ought to
that's the
just
case,
cancel
no
most of
wonder
it.
people don't watch this or that.
Well, I tell you, I have had opportunity to see regular cable television recently because I don't watch it. I haven't had it. And I'm like,
How can people allow
wow,
that in their
really?
homes? Yeah.
Really? And the thing is that
But it's deceiving those that you're talking about. They don't know the difference.
they don't know the difference, and you get so accustomed to it that little by little, it's like the frog in the hot water. It starts heating it up little by little. Pretty soon you don't know he's in boiling water.
Yep.
Well,
And he's cooked.
that's pretty much television to me. And
Yep. You
You
got
know?
it.
Frog is cooked. All right.
but nevertheless, God loves us, and His will be done.
It will.
His kingdom will come.
His kingdom will come.
Indeed, His kingdom
Is here.
Is here.
This article is from Reuters, and although Saudi Arabia has recently made moves to advance its nuclear program, experts say it's uncertain whether it could realistically build an atomic bomb in secret or withstand the political pressure it would face if such plans were revealed.
I think Saudi Arabia would seriously try to get the bomb if Iran did. It's just like India and Pakistan. The Pakistanis said for years they didn't want one, but when India got it, so did they, said Jamal Khashoggi, head of a Saudi news channel owned by a prince. The conservative kingdom is engaged in a contest for power with the Islamic Republic, stretching across the region, and fears the nuclear deal will free Tehran from international pressure and sanctions, giving it more room to back allies in proxy wars. So far, its response has been lukewarm public praise for the deal, coupled with private condemnation, a reaction that follows a more muscular approach to Iran evident in its war against allies of Tehran in Yemen and more help for Syrian rebels.
However, some Saudis close to the ruling family have also warned that if Iran still manages to weaponize its nuclear program, then the kingdom will have to follow suit, despite the cost of becoming a pariah state and rupturing ties with the U.S. Analysts who follow Saudi Arabia are divided as to whether it really does constitute a proliferation risk, given its newly assertive stance toward the U.S. and the life and death import it places on the struggle with Iran, or whether it's bluffing. They're also split on whether international pressure via meaningful sanctions could be imposed on a country whose economy depends almost entirely on trade, but whose ability to maintain massive oil exports is critical for global energy markets.
What senior Saudis have consistently said about the Iranian nuclear deal is that they will demand exactly the same terms. That would allow them a nuclear fuel cycle that could produce material for a bomb, but would also impose a tough inspections regime. The kingdom's atomic power plants, like those of Iran, are based on the economic principle that it's better to use crude oil for revenue-generating exports to maintain social benefits than fritter it away on soaring electricity consumption.
Its nuclear body, the King Abdullah City for Atomic and Renewable Energy, KACARE, recommended in 2012 that Saudi Arabia install 17 gigawatts of nuclear power, but it's not yet laid out plans to do so. Riyadh has signed nuclear energy cooperation agreements with several countries able to build reactors, but recent deals with France, Russia, and South Korea go beyond these by including feasibility studies for atomic power plants and fuel cycle work. Daunting technical obstacles would still hinder any Saudi attempt to build a bomb, something that would most likely be achieved via a uranium enrichment process for which technological transfer between countries is closely regulated.
At present, the United States is so closely entwined with Saudi Arabia's political and security infrastructure that it would be hard to envisage Riyadh embarking on a nuclear weapons project without Washington finding out. Going behind Washington's back to build a nuclear bomb would cause massive ruptures in a strategic security relationship that will remain vital to Saudi Arabia despite its efforts to create alternative alliances with other military powers. The pair's relationship has weakened in recent years, but while they disagree on what role Washington should take in the Middle East, the U.S. remains Saudi Arabia's chief security guarantor, so it retains considerable leverage over Riyadh.
Saudi Arabia's unique place in world energy is not only the largest exporter, but maintains a large cushion of excess output capacity, giving it unparalleled leverage over oil prices at a cost that no other producer appears willing to match, makes sanctions on its crude exports impossible. But while oil sales accounted for 33% of economic activity and 87% of revenue in the kingdom last year, its non-oil sector is heavily reliant on imports, including food and consumer goods, which are theoretically vulnerable to sanctions.
Riyadh has for decades avoided using its ability to upset the world economy for political gain. But that could change if it felt threatened enough. It may bet that fears of a repeat of the 1973 oil embargo would stop any real international pressure over its nuclear plans. I'm sure Saudi Arabia is ready to withstand pressure. It would have moral standing. If the Iranians and Israelis have it, we would have to have it too, said Khashoggi, adding that he believed Riyadh's oil exports would immunize it from pressure. Testing that theory, however, would represent a huge gamble for Riyadh. Whether the risk involved outweigh those they believe would be incurred by allowing Iran a nuclear advantage is something the kingdom's ruling Al Saud are doubtless considering.
They're kind of between a rock and a hard place too, huh?
Isn't everybody? Hey, you know what? Many of you know who Doug Stringer is. He's got a program on here called Somebody Cares. Great guy battling lymphoma. But you know what? A testimony is coming out of that is unbelievable. Got an email from him last night, and I want to point out one of the things that he shared. And that was all of these racial riots that we've had with all this nonsense that's been going on all over the nation. Just days before that shooting in Charleston, they had a gathering of a lot of the church leaders there. It was called The Response. And that's why when that happened there, they all gathered together, put God first, and everything was fine.
Hallelujah.
See you Friday.